All right, so we got Bill McCormick in the house. He has worked in the music department on so many different movies, everything from Motel 666 to Shower of Blood. And you're very active on Facebook. What do you think a lot of indie filmmakers could learn from?
Quite honestly, it's an interesting question. 20, 30 years ago, when I was really active and when I first started getting into films, doing stuff like being a music director, being an actor, one film was unfortunate enough to grace me with its presence, or grace its presence with me. However that works out grammatically. But back then, you really had to build your films from the ground up. You first had to make sure you had your cast, you had your production crew completely in place. Then you put your cast together, made sure you had your budget all the way along. That producer was in charge of the budget, and you did not go a penny over that budget, or somebody that's going to come to your house with a hammer, and then we're not going to be putting up walls. There's a lot of work, and there's a lot of pre-work just to make an independent movie. And I spent many hours in meetings saying, okay, this is the kind of feel we want for it. This is what we want. Shower of Blood was a great example.
Yeah, because I somehow coincidentally saw that. I think it was streaming briefly. It wasn't junky. It was really pretty engaging, but I can see why some people may or may not like it. It's up to you.
Oh, it's definitely bubblegum chewing material, softcore porn for the least intellectual among us.
At least you're honest.
But when we were doing that movie with Kilborn, he wanted it to have more of a feel of a music video. So there's actually 30 songs in that soundtrack. Each are used incrementally to different scenes just to give it a vibe. And then Dylan came back and put in the score around the soundtrack I developed. It was really weird. Another film I worked on, Shut Eye, that one we finished completely, and then we tacked in the music afterwards. So I was able to pick music that fit specific scenes. So we might have like a pool of 100, 200 songs to work from, but we only needed 30 seconds to fit this one thing, one radio in the background kind of thing, whatever. So it was different. And it was very different back then. It was it had to be very structured. Anyone who went into it and just winged it, like, we're just going to put the camera up and make us a movie. They usually ended up with something that was not only unwatchable, but probably uneditable, just because nothing went together.
It's even harder to score when you got to get from one scene to the next. What was it like working with David C. Hayes, whose work includes The Horror Vault, Part 3 to Vampageddon?
We worked on different projects. We worked on some of the same projects at the same time.
I know he was the co-writer of Shower of Blood.
Right. But we never crossed paths really, other than like to say hi. I mean, like when we did opening night here in Chicago, I sat by him for a while, but there was this blonde I really had my eyes on, and talking to him meant nothing to me at the time.
Is Chicago kind of still growing as a movie scene other than TV? Or
Chicago has a very active movie scene. I mean, The Dark Knight was filmed here. It doesn't have millions of films being shot here, but it does have the infrastructure to shoot major productions now. And they do come here, and scenes are shot here, and parts of movies are shot here. I know several directors who really love coming here. It's a matter of cost. Chicago, unlike Vancouver, where they just get rid of all the taxes on film, so it's like, hey, come shoot my film here, or shoot my TV show here. And my buddy Larry Lunday, who's a costume designer and set designer for pretty much everything, but when he was doing Batwoman, they were shooting it. They were going to Vancouver to do all the work, and then they would shoot the exteriors in different cities wherever they wanted it. So it was like they shot in New York, but only with a camera crew. They didn't put any cast there.
Yikes!
It's very weird.
It can be. How you had the great fortune of doing so many short stories in magazines, blogs, and let alone just making podcast appearances. How do people reach out to you?
Well, a lot of that. I started writing in 2011, or a little over before 2011. I'd lost my job. I'd been working with Ascension Records for several years, and I was proud of that company.
Back in '86.
Yeah, I started music. I started writing professionally back in '86. I wrote for Chicago Rocker magazine. Mm-hmm. I wrote for The Scene. I wrote for. I had a blog called Jay the Joke that was featured in Sports Illustrated, ESPN, the magazine, Jonathan Brandmeier's radio show here in Chicago. It was featured in a lot of places, and I got a lot of credit, a lot of sports writers. I became the go-to place where people wanted to dump a story first, but their editor wouldn't let them touch it. So I became really good friends with a lot of people, especially on the Major League Baseball side of things. I knew stuff 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks before it ever hit anywhere else. And every time someone would call me a liar, I'd start the clock going, wait, there it is. You know, so it was fun. It was fun. But I like writing. I just started writing fiction and started my fiction published in 2011 because after Ascension closed, it really was just not much for me to do. And I had these little demons in my head. And I was either going to, become a serial killer or a writer. And I decided to be a writer.
That's very specific. Well, what caused the writing bug? What made you say, "Hey, that's really is truly what I want to do. My heart is totally invested there."
Well, I like telling stories. It's a fun thing to do, and I like writing science fiction because I can wrap some moral content in this really incredible story that you don't realize there's an underlying moral there until you kind of get near the end. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I learned something. Damn it! And we have some fun with that. And I'm pleased too. My book Splice Hypnotechnology and The Brittle Riders both were voted best novels of their years 2020 and 2022 respectively by the Critters Readers Poll. And Critters is short for critics, so it's book critics critiquing my books, and they made it the best of the year twice. So
that's neat.
Somebody likes it.
What would you recommend now that we're in a digital self-publish, put your book on Amazon or Goodreads era? What would you say about transitioning to that? Any words of advice for those trying to get started on that?
If you are going to self-publish, how do I put this? I know one author has released 45 novels in the last 5 years. I release one every 18 months. The difference is when I'm putting out a novel, I have a publishing company, but even so, when we're putting out a novel, I edit it, then I go through it with like Grammarly or some sort of AI software to check the grammar and the structure of the sentences. Then I send it to an editor where they go through the real editing to make sure everything makes sense, it looks right, feels right, sounds right. Then we package it, then we present it, and then we finally put it out for somebody to buy. A lot of self-published authors skip a lot of those steps. And that's why self-publishing gets a bad name. It's not that these people aren't talented. They just don't put any work into the actual body of it, the creation of it. There's a lot that goes into it. And we were talking offline about writing music. When I was writing music professionally, when I was doing stuff like that, sure, you'd have a good groove, you'd have a jam, but if that's all you had, it's just the middle branch of a dance song that nobody remembers. But if you take the time to put a bridge to it, to put the melody to it, to add the lyrics to it, all the connecting tissue, then you've got a song, and then hopefully somebody will listen to it and go, ooh, that's a song. I like that song. It's the same with books. There's a lot of steps. You can't just throw words at a screen and pray to God that they come out with a Nobel Prize or something. You got to go from A to Z. And a lot of self-published authors don't take that step. And now I'm seeing a lot of independent movie makers, because the technology has come up, I've seen some of these small handheld cams that shoot pretty darn good digital footage. It's comparable to what you see on a big screen.
I'm with you. They got the qualities, so they've given themselves, they have no idea what a great shortcut they have. And I have had to just quietly just step away. They've asked for my 2 cents. They didn't like my 2 cents because then they kind of silently shrugged me off. I'm like, okay, well, I can't hear it. It looks great. Yeah. I can't hear it. So I don't know what you want from me.
Right. I think, people they don't know what they're doing with the sound. That's one thing.
They think I'm trying to pick on them. I'm not here to pick on you. I have been in your shoes. I've done this in college. I was showing a short I did in college to people, and it's amazing that it took like over 10 years to finally get a reason of what could have been better. And it was like, oh, you should have recast the lead, needed better staging. I needed more. I'm like, that would have been great to know back in class, but no one bothered to just say anything. They just said it sucked. I'm like, well, that tells me nothing.
Yeah, I know. I think now, especially for aspiring filmmakers, there are so many options out there. Off the top of my head, Voyage Media comes to mind. Stage 32 comes to mind. Coverfly comes to mind. these are places where you can go and meet other film producers, other directors, other sound designers, other
We've changed
filmographers,
so much
cinematographers.
from published on DVD and festivals to now we can try all kinds of internet venues.
Right, but I belong to a couple of these places, and because I'm chopping some scripts for films, because this couple of years, a little over a year and a half ago, a guy named Garrick Dion, he just produced a little movie called Joker with Joaquin Phoenix,
Yeah.
and he got hold of the Brittle Riders, and basically he liked it so much he wrote the back cover blurb that we now use to promote the book. It's on the book itself. It's like, here's 5 stars from a guy who produced Joker. Read my book.
That's a win. Just anyone who can write a review, even if it's a sarcastic review, is like, hey, that sold the item.
Right. So that's in pre-production or in development.
Congratulations.
To try and get it made into a movie. And I love it. I love that. Everybody I talk to, they love the story. They love everything about it. And then they're like, this is going to be expensive to make. And I'm like, we could have saved ourselves a whole lot of time if you just looked at the character list and went, this is going to take some money. Because there's like 1/3 of the book is all CGI. There's no way, or excuse me, all VFX. CGI is what's on my phone, computer graphic interface. Oh, look, I can call someone with a pretty app. But yeah, for video effects, because we believe it or not, there are not a lot of people who are actually centaurs walking around, and we need one of those. And we don't have a lot of 4.5 foot tall skeletons with flaming eyes. We need to create that.
Given how you, again, you've been referenced by the Chicago Tribune, and your materials appeared on ESPN, Sports Illustrated, and even Fox Sports. Given how much all these industries have changed, and I can relate to it. My mother used to work for Star Telegram before she just finally threw in the towel and said, "You guys don't know what the hell you're doing." What word of advice would you give to those trying to do kind of comedic skits for talk shows or still going magazines, since that whole experience has changed?
If you're gonna do anything with comedy, I would say cut your teeth at a comedy club. Try some stuff out, even if you're just reading from cards.
Open mic.
Yeah, I did a few open mics, and I discovered my comedic timing was horrible. I write stuff now that's funny, but when I first started trying to do this, I was trying to be funny. See, got my funny part. You should laugh now. Ha ha. Laugh with Bill.
It was robotic.
Yeah, it was robotic. It was forced. In some cases, it was completely tasteless and possibly offensive. But as I started doing stuff, in my case, I cut my chops on radio. I would interact with different people on radio, and you start getting just more of a natural flow of things. And that influenced my writing, because now when I'm writing conversations, I can hear these other voices in my head, and my doctor doesn't think I need meds for that. I'm doing okay. But I can interact with these voices in my head and create more natural sounding conversations, and funnier. I can find the humor in some really dark places, because my stuff that I write is dark, and I don't want people to be suicidal at the end of them. I want them to be contemplative, but I don't want them to be pulling a razor out. So you have to go, walk that fine line.
That is a good idea. What other stuff do you have upcoming that you'd like to plug before we go?
Well, I've got a new trilogy out called Gopri of the Mist, which is basically the Brittle Riders set in India. You knew you wanted it. I have a collection of short stories that just came out that people actually seem to like a lot. It's called Stuff About Things. And it's literally a collection of my short stories, my essays, my articles. You'll find a thing in there about why the Gospel of Luke lies to people and why it was a good thing that it did.
Oh, jeez, that's very satirical.
Yeah, I debuted that sucker on Fox Radio. You want to get those all caps emails coming in? It's like coming on with gun control on Fox Night. Here, Hannity. Let's talk about the Second Amendment. It'll be fun.
Yikes!
I like getting all caps email. That tells me people are paying attention. So I don't worry about it. You do this for a while, and especially I've done a lot of radio.
Any mail is good mail.
I've gotten death threats, and I'm like, I've written them back and corrected their spelling. It's just you get to that point.
They're just doing it to intimidate you, and they're like, "Hey, this guy actually responded back instead of paying me money. Wow, he's got stones." Wow. Hey, no, congratulations on that. Again, this is what we kind of do on this variety show. We kind of do like to interview people who have worn so many different hats and kind of give their 2 cents on all these changing entertainment industries. It really is a lot of fun. I know I was interviewing someone who had been like a B movie actress, and long story short, she wasn't crazy about that work anymore, even though she still got fan mail from it. And I said, hey, I'm just here to kind of talk about how the audition process has changed. We're not going to ask you 100 questions about those crazy movies you made in the 90s for Charles Band. And it still didn't stop. It was still cool that people responded to it when it was posted on Twitter, but it still was like, she doesn't want to talk about that, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, we just recently did a meeting with some of the members of our church. We were getting to know each other, and people would say things like, I really have 2 middle names instead of 1, and that was the exciting, intimate thing they were sharing. In my brain, because I'm broken, I just went, well, I used to be a nude model from 1982 to 1986. And you ever hear a room just stop?
Yeah, that's a record scratch.
But it had the benefit of A, being true, and B, being a good conversation starter.
I mean, if you want to go there, you can. Nice. Well, best of luck to you, my guy, and I will be sure to check out some of these books.
All right, thanks for having me on, guys. I wish you all the best.
All the time. Godspeed. Check out his blog. He's still active, guys. Still active.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, give it up, Jimmy, you gotta sink this putt to win. On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast wrecks and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in, it's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a Jacked Up Review Show.